having a perspective that's going to help you recognise the things that haven't gone well, but recognising things that have gone well as well.
And integral. Pulled my headphone out with my pen there. Got excited.
Well, so excited there, excited. I could see it. Getting to 95, looking back, what do you regret? Don't regret. And I think, a lot of people we speak to talk about this thing about when I get to 95, look back and say, I wish I'd done that thing,
I saw a video of you earlier doing this. I think it's stuck in my head.
So the only caveat with that is that might go, I just think of you as in the shower and I just think of you. You can still say that, obviously.
And now recording the Zoom.
Okay. You're recording Zoom in?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Excellent. Okay. Good.
Ready to go?
Yes, we're ready to go. Ready to boom boom. As we say.
I love it. Right.
Okay.
We on?
Yes,
so I count us in.
You're ready. You count us in.
Okay. 99, 98.
Wow, that's going to take a long time.
Right, yeah, that's true. Right.
We could be in the moment with this. We could be a long time. Hang on. Go on.
See, lucky I gave you a second, see?
I know. But I just wanted to do something here. Okay. Off you go.
Ready?
Go on.
Cool. 3, 2, 1. Inspiration Nation. Hello, Lee Kemp here for another week on the podcast. Here as a twosome. Here, me and Joe for the week. How are you doing, Joe?
Yeah, good. Very good, thanks. And how are you, Lee? How have things been going for you?
Not too bad, Joe. Not too bad. We're doing something a bit different here today as well. Well, on a couple of fronts. Number one, is we've talked about for a little while about the idea of having a bit of ambient noise in the background. So we're doing this on a busy Saturday. Busier Saturday for Joe than me. So Joe's household is in the background and we are still pushing ahead with podcasting.
I don't know if you heard that. Did you hear that? Stop it. Did you hear that? It's my daughter. I was like, stop it. Anyway, but yeah, it's going to happen. You're going to get a little bit of background noise.
Which is good because we talked about ways to fake it. So this is in real life we are doing.
Yeah, it's real life. So my family's milling about. My daughter's actually doing some exercise thing. And and that's it. Hey, do you want to come and have a little on the podcast? Guys, come over it. No, they said no.
Yeah, I thought they might say no. And the other thing we're doing that's slightly different, Joe, is normally, as people know when they listen to the show and we give little peeks behind the curtain, we record a bit in advance. There's a chance to tweak it around and edit it, and then it's ready to go for kind of the end of the week or the weekend. Today, we are recording, and within several hours, this will be up and out to people. So if you're listening right now, chances are it's only 2 or 3 hours ago that we were sat recording this, which again is not much of a difference for people listening, but it's certainly different for us in the way we're doing things, isn't it?
Oh, do you know what? That's so weird you said that because I didn't think you were going to do that. I thought you were going to wait for the following week.
No.
This is going to go up this weekend.
This is going up today. Otherwise we'll miss out getting one out every week.
Wow, that's great. Do you know what? It feels like a bit of a while, actually, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It feels like a bit of a while, but we put a load in the bag, haven't we? So it'd been quite good. Oh, I like that.
So this is
good.
This is as your friend Evan Carmichael says, idea action. We're recording. We're out there.
I love that. Was he did that thing? Idea action.
I saw a video of you earlier doing this. I think it's stuck in my head.
Come on.
For people listening, that was me doing one of Joe's hand gestures that we'll see. Want to see Joe's videos? Head over to JN Coaching Tech, stick it in your Google machine, or follow Joe on Twitter at JN Coaching Tech or Instagram the same. And the show is at Listen to IN, Listen TOIN. And don't forget. Oh, sorry. Go on, Joe. Go on.
We're on TikTok as well now.
We are on TikTok.
TikTok is growing. TikTok is growing. JN Coaching Technology at TikTok, man. It's growing.
Multiple ways for you to enjoy the nation.
Absolutely.
So,
totally.
What is the subject of today, Mr. Noya?
So, I don't know whether you probably did watch or you didn't watch one of my minute videos. I hope you did watch it, Billy, because I know you're an avid viewer, watcher. But I did one about reviewing your year or reviewing your year, how it went past and things like that. Did you watch that one?
I did, of course. I watch every one, Joe.
Okay, good.
Not so every day. Sometimes I binge on the minute videos.
Oh, you binge? Oh, look, so it's like Netflix.
Exactly.
Oh, look, I like that. But we talked about our 2020, what we're going to do for 2020, and I thought it'd be good to ask some questions on this podcast about for our podcast listeners and also on our YouTube, actually do some proper reviews. So I actually, on my video, I actually had a session with my spiritual coach, and she put out for me some questions that I should review for what's happened in the year and going forward, how we should review what we're going to do and go forward. And I thought it was really good because a lot of time we don't recognise our wins. And just like when I do the journaling, it's the best. See, this is the best one. Just got for you podcast listeners. I just got my daughter's boyfriend taking his car at the back of my chair. Can you come past? Come on. I was got someone crawling. They're crawling. They're crawling behind the chair. Here we go. Yep, they're still crawling.
Angle the camera down so you see it.
No, I don't want to. So my daughter's now crawling and made it behind. There you go. It's like a great escape.
I'm not realise, Joe, that when they were in the kitchen earlier, she was on video the whole time, so I'm not sure that saved anything.
Oh, really? Yeah, you're in the kitchen, so you're on video anyway. In the kitchen. Anyway,
good effort, though. Good effort.
Carry on. So, what are we doing? What are we carrying on with? Oh, we're doing now.
I enjoyed that. Enjoyed that little conversation there, Joe.
Yeah.
You were talking about your questions that you're going to ask for the year.
That was right. So, reviewing the questions for the year. It's so important, I think, to focus and not be fearful of things that are coming up, what have happened, what you think might happen, might not, and having those plans. So this is about getting focused, I think. What's recognising what you've done, how it's gone, recognising success, maybe the losses as well, and things that failed, but that's where we get the growth. So I'm just going to ask a couple of questions. So I've already done mine because I reviewed mine. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions.
Okay. And
we'll dig into these as we go. And what I'll do is if I go through the question, I'll tell you what I put, and then that might give you a bit of time just to sort of have a think about. So it's a bit on the fly for you. So
this is a bit on the fly. I was not expecting this.
Yeah, exactly. This is the whole point of the podcast, right? This is the whole point where we need to make sure that, that it's from a genuine place. Right? I mean, I've already done one because it's the thing that I do all the time. But as we do on the podcast, do a bit of coaching, don't we? We do a podcast, we do a bit of coaching. And I think this is quite a good reflection and things that we want to do. So the first question, number one, so what are the goals achieved or not achieved this year? The second part to this as well, why didn't we achieve some of the goals and what were the barriers? So for me, I put this in I context, so what have I? So for me, goals achieved, we're like doing the podcast, daily videos. What I think I haven't achieved is quicker growth. Content needs to be better. I think having more engaging content, more calls to action from our listeners, getting them to get more involved. I think I need to be brave with some of the content. I think I did it a little bit over Christmas, a bit more brave with sort of a bit behind the scenes stuff. But it's still another barrier. As I still, we still got our own occupations that we do full time, right? And we're doing this in between, but making sure that we make the most use of that time to get the right balance for me. Obviously, this is for me, so I have to make sure I balance with my family, the podcast, everything like that. But also recognising that I've got to get the content more engaged. So that's something that's been conscious in the back of my mind. So that for me, goals achieved, the podcast, the 1 minute videos every single day. Why didn't I achieve some of the goals? Just the content needs to be better. I haven't achieved the quicker growth because I think content needs to be better, more engaging, whatever. And that's where we get the feedback and things like that, and calls to action. And the barriers were clearly with time, but I know time's always a barrier, but it's how we make the most of it. So that was for my that was my number one. So I know I've probably spoken a little bit here already, but what are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, and I suppose in the same vein, I think the biggest one, and if you go back through our episode, you'll hear this, we set our hairy, scary goal of 50,000 followers across all social media, which we, and we said we talk about this openly if we got there. I don't want to turn this too much into a journey update episode because I think we'll do one of them as well quite soon. But we haven't met that goal. I think we're probably somewhere around the 40,000 rather than 50,000. So it's, it's still a good number, but it's not met in terms of pure hitting your goal thing exactly where it should be. And I think the same as you. I think there's more on the social media front I could be doing. I think it falls into a routine sometimes. And I think sometimes it's good to just break out of that routine. On the flip side of that, this time last year, there was no podcast. There was no social media.
Mm.
There was no Twitter. There was no Instagram. There was no shop. There was no YouTube channel. There was no weekly podcast. There was no videos. So I think whilst I think there's more I would have liked to have done, at the same point, right now, there are people listening to this. So it's stuck in my throat there. There are people listening to this. I won't clip that out. Leave it in. Keep it raw.
Oh,
but
yeah.
there are people listening to this today as we record this. There'll be people listening next week. There are people listening to this 6 months after we recorded this that, you know, again, this wasn't a fixture. It was only 9 months ago, maybe, that we started actually saying, wouldn't it be good if we had something and one person listened to it? So
Yeah.
I think a lot has been achieved. And if we hadn't have set those big goals, we wouldn't have got, you know, the 50, 70, 80% through those goals we would have got. So whilst I think there's stuff I'm looking at that I want to improve on and get better with and integrate. Oh, pulled my headphone out with my pen there. Got excited.
I'm so excited there. Excited. I can see it.
And things that we can learn from and integrate into next year. I think it's also, for me, really important to think about how much has been achieved. And the biggest thing I think that has been achieved this year, is that the question, or are we still talking about what hasn't been achieved? I forgot the question.
So goals achieved, not achieved this year.
So the biggest achievement, I think, is a consistency part. So we have, without fail, put out one of these every single week. We've managed, you know, almost daily the whole social media part with it. We've kept our catch-ups regular with this. I mean, we've seen each other more in the last 9 months than we have in the last 10 years. So,
yeah, I agree. Yeah, definitely.
Which has been fantastic. And I think keeping that momentum, actually creating it and keeping the momentum going and keeping its thing and establishing it as just a regular part of our lives has been a huge achievement, I think, even if we're kind of a bit short of exactly how big we wanted that to be. And we talked a bit, you know, before we started recording, we talked a bit about that and some of the stuff we want to build on, some of the stuff we want to grow a bit with it and that. So I think whilst it hasn't met that 50 goal, I think it's out there and it's live and it's regular and we have regular listeners and we're growing the audience base. And that, for me, I think is a huge achievement for the year.
Oh, I definitely agree.
It wasn't even on the radar this time 12 months ago.
Yeah, and it's not even 12 months yet. The podcast wasn't up. So it's not even 12 months yet. It's not even been 12 months. And I know I sort of referenced to you that if you took this as going into an employment role, like, you know, you're like at a job and you're in that job for less than 12 months, you would expect to like be promoted to the next level because you're just starting.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot to be sort of mirrored about that. And I think, and I talked about it a bit this morning in the video, that you've got to be patient about what this is. But the most important thing is that you're doing it because you love doing it. And I think if any of us are doing this, like Ryan, yourself, me, fell out of love with it, just stop. Just stop tomorrow. Because, you know, what would be the point if you just do it because you don't love it?
And then I think why did a podcast, and obviously won't go into too many details around it, but for example, as some people will do, as I did, I set myself some financial goals for the year. You know, savings, debt paying off, all those things, whatever it is. And actually, and I'll say I am not exactly where I wanted to be, but I have a habit of, even though, and I bought into it 50,000, I generally set a goal in my head, and then over a few days, I've made that goal a bit bigger, and then I kind of aim above where it is. So again, I'm not where it should be, but actually all I've done is reassess where I am and feed that into the goals for next year and what I want to do. And rather than just dwelling and you kind of get into a cycle, it's assessing what went well, what didn't, you know, there were some speed bumps in the way that caused things that had to happen, and then almost reassessing the goals with all the challenges in place and realizing actually it was still quite good and reassessing that.
I love that. And I think there's a lot of a bit of gratitude in there as well. I can sort of sense in the background. You said, well, okay, it was difficult, but, you know, I'm grateful for this, you know, some things that did happen.
Yeah.
Because, you know, those are challenges, but I did better than I thought I did. You're recognising there were some successes within all the losses, I suppose, which I think is a real interesting dynamic, because you can recognise the lesson. I call that recognising the lesson. Like, it didn't work, but this is what I learned from it. And I always say that as long as you don't make the same mistake twice, then that's good. Because if you make the same mistake twice, the first time you make a mistake is demonstrable. If you do that same mistake again, that's a decision you've made, not a mistake, because you've been there before. And I think there's a big difference. So for me, that's really important,
and then
to recognise who's Yeah.
This was a conscious thing at the start of the year, was
Yeah.
to be more active with family and friends. Because as you'll know, and as people listening who might be like myself and more like Joe, as you get older, it becomes far more appetizing to sit in and watch a bit of TV and relax than it does to make the effort and go out and see people and keep all that contact going. Especially, you know, if you're busy, you've got stuff going on, work stuff, your immediate family around you, like we do, hobbies like the podcast and stuff. But I've been really trying to have a conscious thing in my head that when I hit that bit of, oh, maybe I'll just tell them I'm busy, is pushing through that and making the effort to spend a bit more time with people. Because I think that is important. And as you know, we know, Joe, we talked about it years ago, and we've referenced it a few times on the podcast. I had that time in my life when everything was kind of centered around work, and when that was stressful, my whole life was stressful, and trying to balance everything out. And that kind of friends bit is one I've been really working on this year, and I think I've done a lot better for myself. That I do try and maintain that contact. I think I've had more contact with more people this year than I had for the last few years, which again, for a kind of well-being thing, is something I've just been focused on, which has been quite good as well.
And do you feel better for it?
Yeah, I absolutely do. And when you push through that thing and make sure you are keeping that contact going, it's really good. And it's a two-way thing, because people appreciate the contact and you feel good from it yourself. So
Oh, I love that.
yeah, it's been a good thing for me this year, and I want to keep focused on that going forward, because it's such an easy rut to fall into, I think, where time just takes over.
I've got a little bit of a thing that I like doing with that type of thing, where if I think of someone, I'll just send them a message. Oh, I was thinking of you.
I like that.
I'm just saying, oh, I was just thinking of you, and I just thought, and whatever the thought was, like if I message you, sometimes be out of the blue, I was just thinking, oh, how are you doing? Like, I think I was saying, how are you doing? And there was something about a thought. And
oh, you even sent one actually where you just said, thinking about you, dude. Hope everything's okay. Yeah,
because I had the thought, and that means, and I really do believe that that's come to me for a reason. So I'll send it, and that'll make me do it. And that also blasts past that thing of, oh, I'm going to sit there, because even when I'm meditating, sometimes I'll get, oh, so after that meditation, I'll let it go, but after meditation, I would have remembered something, and I was like, oh, I just need to just do that. I'll do that quite a lot of the time. I'll just thinking of you, and yeah, it just sends that message out, even over Christmas, stuff like that, which is quite a few thoughts about certain people, and I'll just send them a quick message.
That's good.
Not necessarily like a routine. It's like just off the back of a feeling or a thought. So once I'm thinking of right, I'll do that straight away. It's only a quick message, isn't it? Like boom.
That's it.
And away it goes. So yeah, I like that though.
I might integrate that into my my pattern for next year.
So the only caveat with that is that might go, I just think of you as in the shower, and I'm just thinking of you. You can still say that, obviously.
You wait, you will get that message from me, Joe.
I was in the shower. Well, actually, you were in the shower. You did your video, remember?
Cold shower video. You can see it now. Video. Listen to T-O-I-N. I might just give that a little retweet.
Is it on Instagram?
As it's going out today? No, because it's too long for Instagram, and I'm too much of a noob to know how to edit it to load it on. But I'm going to retweet it on Twitter right now as we're doing this.
Oh, okay.
So if you're listening today, give it a little search.
I will. I'll retweet it too. Everyone can have a little watch, a little good fun with that. And Ryan will sure enjoy that as well.
Indeed. Right, so there you go. That's my answer to question 1.
Good. So some pretty good growth there, like for both of us, I think. Recognising there's some challenges around these things. So number 2 then was what are the actions that got me the results and which ones didn't? So we talked a little bit about that, but I think it's quite nice to sort of be a bit more specific maybe. So what didn't get results was overthinking things for me still. I still do overthink things sometimes. And still getting better at the content for our audience. So for me, it's like, I do a lot of engagement with the audience, but getting to know them a little bit better. So what I've started doing on my Instagram, which is interesting, is if people follow me on Instagram, I will send them now a personal video message saying thank you for their following. So I actually send them a video. So
I like that. And as I say, when I first signed up to Instagram, again, people listening to Journey Update know that wasn't too long ago. I got your video, and then someone else sent me a video, and I was like, oh, this must be a thing people do on Instagram. That's quite good. Never had a video since.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it?
It's weird that I've got those two really close together.
And that's it. Yeah, so I think and that's part of that thing for me, is like, what actions are getting results? So those are getting good results. So people get responses to those. That's quite good. and gets them more engaged. 1 minute videos on YouTube got results. They get, they didn't get results because they're too short.
So they're just too short. That though.
Yeah, they harm the longer form videos. So I've decided to change that and go longer form. And also the thumbnails. I don't know if you know what they are.
I do know what they are. The little picture at the start of the video.
You do.
Look at me. See, I'm all over this stuff.
So the thumbnails.
I'll confess, Joe. I only know that because you told me.
Oh, did you? Oh. But I really recognised about probably 6-7 months ago. But I really didn't know how to do them, so I had to learn how to do them. So I'm doing them more now. Every video that I do from now on have a thumbnail. I really should probably go through the whole channel and do a thumbnail for each video, but I'm just not going to do that at the moment.
At least you're honest. You're honest with that.
I am. I'm not. So the new ones I'm going to do them. But never say never. Something in the back of my mind that I might do, but it'd be just about resourcing really. So as I go forward to do that. So what worked better? My editing. I've started getting back into my editing, and then I read a little chat offline do about the editing. It's a bit better. More energy. I get more energy, more structure, more actual content, more information. And a good thing that worked is also TikTok is starting to grow. That's the fastest. I think that might be one of the fastest. Like that, and Twitter is the fastest growing. I think at the moment. If I was looking at it, the podcast as well, actually, it's pretty good, fast growing. So there's some things in there that didn't get results, have got results. Personally, I still need to get more balance. Things that work well has been obviously that thing of just making sure that I tune in my family more, at the right times, that I listen more, that I control my emotion more sometimes, and just let them know how honestly I'm feeling. But there's a lot of things around that I still got to learn. I'm still evolving. And actually one of the things that's really helped me, and I'll use it in the video, is this. I did a 1 minute video about it. I got given it over by my spiritual coach, actually, as my first Christmas present of the year. Oneness with All Life by Eckhart Tolle. It's really good. Wrote The Power of Now and A New Earth. And it's really good about getting your thoughts and actually not getting attached to them, and just being you, just finding out more about who you are. And actually, on this is it's actually Chris Evans has recommended that, which is interesting, and he calls him an otherworldly genius. Chris Evans on BBC Radio 2, so he really likes him, and I think Chris Evans has got much more spiritual as people like Russell Brand. So it's really about this whole thing that I feel that for me, what got results, what didn't, is just finding out more about me, and by doing the podcast and talking about it, I am finding out a lot more about me than in the last year I've done for a long time. And I think actually talking to other people like yourself, and actually when you're expressing your thoughts, I think, wow, hang on, there has been a lot of growth here. There's a lot more going on. It's been more self-aware. I think it's that. So the getting the results for me is become more self-aware, but I still need more self-aware, which is a bit of a caveat. It's in between two, but it's the right thing. So that's for me. So what about you? So I'm going to just throw it at you. So I'll just remind you what it is. So what got you? So what are the actions that got you the results, and what are the ones that didn't?
I think the biggest one, let's start on the didn't. Hesitation, I think, is my biggest downfall when it comes to not achieving results. Is that, that's an idea. Maybe I'll come back to that. Or I'll do that a bit later, and then it's a bit later, and then it's a bit later, and then it's too late and it's gone. And I think I do, since, like with you, and like you said at the end of your answer there, I've become a lot more self-aware since we started doing this, just because of the amount we talk about ourselves and with each other, and you become aware of it. So it's been a big, big part of my growth. And I think I do the hesitation thing less because of it, but I also think I'm more aware of it when I do it. And I still think there's room to grow with that and become a bit more pushing myself into those uncomfortable spaces. And we've done it with bits. I am going tomorrow morning, Joe. I am going for the dreaded barber seat. So when you see me tomorrow afternoon, my hair will be shorter. But I feel, we talk about it quite a lot, but I feel comfortable with that now. I've pushed myself through that uncomfortable bit, but I just think I need to do more of that next year, in kind of pushing through those hesitation spaces and realizing the things that there's kind of those scary blockers in my head aren't really as scary as they are. And just keep growing in that sort of way, I think, is the biggest thing. So I think hesitation still can be my biggest downfall of things. what's worked, I think being more comfortable doing what I want to do, being a bit more, and it's funny, and it's one of the things you talk about quite a lot, and I think it's really subconsciously slipped into my brain, is the kind of enjoying the journey more than being so focused on the outcome. I still think, there's time, and I always caveat this, there's times and places where actually it's important someone does something more so than how they got there, and you give them flexibility to do that, and that's more of a kind of workplace thing for me. But actually, certainly in bigger life, when you're trying to do things yourself, it is about enjoying the journey to get to places and not worrying so much about the outcome, or knowing that that's going to come, or just letting the outcome grow as you're going through whatever you're doing. And again, and we reference it a lot, but this podcast is a great example of that. Whilst the idea was, let's get a podcast out there, the way it actually looks and feels now isn't what the plan was day one, but it's great where it is. And it's kind of, there's been a design and an outcome of getting the podcast out there, but a lot of the things that have happened along the way weren't by design. We've just kind of gone with it, haven't we? And I like that.
Right, yeah.
And I think that being comfortable with that evolution part, and enjoying the journey. And I've really got into, I'm saying not into, that's not true. I'm really aware of the concept of mindfulness. So the whole being in the moment thing, and there's someone who's a great mentor for me who got me some books around that sort of stuff, which I confess, as I do a lot of this stuff, I pick bits out of it rather than, studying the whole thing front to back, but a bit more of that living in the moment thing, I think, and having that mindset has allowed me to be more relaxed as the year's gone on. And I think that's helped build some of the successes that have happened with things. Does that make
I love
sense?
that. Yeah. And even in work, I think this can be applied. I know you said you do, but you're aiming for the result, right? But sometimes the result's worse and sometimes it's better. And I think it's important in a work context to do your best to hit whatever it is, but in that moment, be in that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And not because you can kill yourself with stress, because quite often things don't get to exactly where you want them to be. But if you start dwelling on it, it just becomes a vicious cycle, doesn't it? And I think, like you said, being in the moment, or reassessing, or knowing you did your best on the way to somewhere, and you can learn for that and you grow with it, I think. And that whole mindset thing, I think has been one of the biggest things that's helped achieve things this year, and helped me feel like I've achieved things.
Well, you've achieved a lot, I think, from what you said. And in fact, you said about the plan and things like that, which is really interesting. I was listening to a bit of Jocko Willink this morning. I don't know if you've ever heard of Jocko.
No.
But he's a Navy SEAL. He's got his own podcast, and really, really good. And he was talking about plans. He said one of the most important things about plans is that you create your plan, but then you have flexibility within the plan. So you have the plan. This is what the podcast, right? Plan, and then we've then changed and flexed it because it just needs to. So you flex the plan. You don't just put the blinkers on and go. You go, oh, hang on, something's happened. I need to flex that. So flexibility is the key.
Absolutely agree. I'm thinking now.
I could see you thinking.
Yeah. Well, you say you can see me thinking, and those that are watching can see me thinking. What I'm actually doing is looking at something on my phone right now.
You're thinking about something on your phone.
So, who was this guy that you said that I don't know?
Jocko Willink.
He's not the make your bed every day guy, is he?
I don't think he is, no.
Because he's a Navy SEAL as well.
Yeah. I think
might be a different one. Which again, every single day happens without fail.
Do you know what? I could be wrong, Navy SEAL Jocko Willink. He could be. He's one of the military guys. I'm sure he's a Navy SEAL. I'm sure he is. But you can look him up anyway, but he's good.
Yes.
So
anyway, we've gone off on a very uninteresting tangent for people listening. We apologise for those last minutes.
Yes, it is weird, but like there's some really good, these people have been in the most stressful situations you can imagine, under fire, life on the line. And these are principles that can really help in everyday life, which I think is, when you're in the middle of your work or your own business or whatever, just recognising that people under stress have adopt these principles and they work, I think is a really reassuring thing, because people can think, oh, well, it's just someone saying it. But actually, when you look at the people who are using this stuff, it's like, it's really important. Like we're demonstrating that through the podcast. Like we had a plan for the podcast of how it was going to go, and it's changed because depending on what's happened.
Yeah.
You know, we've changed it. We've mixed it up. We've responded, reacted. We've taken on feedback from people. Have you tried this? In fact, one of the tweets was someone said, if you reach out to someone, which I was going to talk to you about, called My Power Talk.
Yes, I saw that.
I need to look into that more and find out a little bit more about it before I reach out. But that would be, you know, something like that. I mean, that wouldn't have happened. And again, that could be something that goes on a different tangent, right?
Absolutely.
Who knows? But yeah, so that's what I think is really good, that flexibility piece.
Yes, I'm going to circle back for a second and mention William H. McRaven is the Make Your Bed man. In fact, he has a book, and I didn't know this, and it says the book is called Make Your Bed. And I've seen there's lots of videos of him on YouTube and stuff, which I'd really recommend to people can have a look. And in fact, someone I know I'm quite close friends with who they don't listen to the podcast. I know they don't. I keep badgering them to listen to it, but and they will say that this sort of stuff isn't their thing, but actually they shared a video on social media of this guy doing the Make Your Bed thing, and they were like, oh, this is so good, I really like this. And I was like, oh, I do that same thing. And it's these things, you know, even people who don't think that this sort of thought process is for them, when you get the right thing that sparks it, it speaks to them, which I just thought was a really nice kind of thing, that they'd seen that and that spoke to them in exactly that same way. So yeah, William, I might share that on Twitter as well. I'm on a Twitter sharing day today.
Awesome.
Speaking of which, I've retweeted, Joe, your Dinosaur Arms t-shirt.
Oh, have you? Thank you for that.
So just want to quick mention to people, inspirationnation.org.uk, banner at the top there, click on it. It will take you to the Inspiration Nation store. We have t-shirts, hoodies, mugs. There is now, I've managed to get it working, there is an Inspiration Nation tote bag on there as well. So
is there a tote bag now?
Yeah, go out shopping, show your love for the nation. It is all on the Inspiration Nation store, including T-Rex Arms t-shirt. And for Ryan as well, there is the Reward Yourself with a Grape t-shirt as well. All
sorts going on.
Indeed.
And I heard there might be some purchases coming along as well from someone you might know. Yeah, so that'd be interesting to see as well. Everyone's getting involved in the nation, in Inspiration Nation. I just want to circle back a little bit. You said about talking about making your bed thing, and I had a conversation with someone who listened to the episode about that and said they actually now do that. And so we've made an impact.
That's really good.
This is amazing. Good. Like, you know, so I have conversations with people about certain episodes, and it's fantastic. It's just great. Okay. So number 3 is then, what then? So things I could have done differently. So things I could have done differently. So better structure for me, more long form content. So being brave, as I said before, being more passionate, I think, about the vision to wake people up, because I think this is one of the things that I'm very passionate about. I want to wake people up to the realization like that this is their life. They only get one of them. In fact, you know, I had a conversation with someone about, I did a 1-minute video about getting to 95, looking back, what do you regret? Don't look at the regret. And I think, you know, a lot of people we speak to talk about this thing about, you know, get to 95, look back and say, I wish I'd done that thing. I wish I'd done that thing. Well, you can do it right now. You're not at 95. Come back and start doing it now. I think I've got a lot of it, but I think it still can be stronger. And I think that's part of me just practicing and continue to just try and think of different ways to get that message across, to wake people up to their lives, that they can achieve more than where they think they are now. And through the podcast, and I'm hoping, like I think you said, Lee, about this podcast is like almost like a journal, a vocal or auditory journal of a mixture of lives, really. So I've got my own journal, which I do here, but we've also got the podcast, and we've got Ryan there, so as well. So we interact, and this is like, we'll look back on this maybe in 10 years time and go, oh, do you remember the episode, and think, wow, where are we now from there? If we kept doing this for 10 years, where would it be? And I think that's where my passion and practice is going to grow. So the 1-minute videos, keeping practicing, keeping the faith in what I'm doing, that it's working. And it is, because sometimes you go through days, oh, do you know, I think, is it really working? And I get doubts. And then I go back and go, no, it's got to be consistent every day. And every time I do that, there's always a comment. There's always something that has helped someone, or there's a conversation in the family, or there's a conversation outside the family don't know that well. They say something, also, wow. And then some person on Twitter that's just connected with it, go, yeah, I retweet the video. And then I think, oh, but those are the small things that propel me forward. And that gives you that. But there's always those times of belief where you think, you know, is this stuff working? You know, but the fact that just one person gets impacted is the key for me, and to remain faithful to that. And I suppose it's a bit of faith, really. I suppose it's speaking verbally, is having more faith in it. And no, it works. Of course, I know it works. It's just the practice and the dedication and the consistency for it. And again, we've only been going under a year with this. You know, the videos are only up to 426. I think it was 426 today. So that's a small amount of time when we think about our whole lives. And so that for me is about things I could have done differently, is having more faith, I think. And again, not regret, but going forward, not differently, but as differently, but being really conscious about doing different things, trying different things. And if I'd gone back, would have done differently? I probably would if I knew had the information I have now, but I didn't have that information back then, if that makes any sense.
Yes.
Sense, which is really weird. Maybe I should have, maybe one of the things I should have started this earlier, which I did a long time ago, but like actually starting this earlier, like, you know, all this stuff, that the regular consistency, maybe I should have started that earlier. So no one has seen the 1 minute videos before the podcast idea come up, didn't you? You were seeing the 1 minute videos, I think. Is that right? I think that was what.
That's it, yes.
And then that gave you the idea of the podcast and blah, blah, blah. And here we are. So differently, maybe I've started earlier with that, doing it consistent. So over to you. What about you?
Just so you don't sell yourself short, by the way, Joe, you are at video 437 today.
Oh, 437.
Yeah.
I did miscount.
Look at you, steaming yourself. You're selling yourself a short by 11 videos there, steaming ahead with them.
Is it 43? What did I say? 427?
No, you said 426.
426.
And we are actually at 437. Again,
wow.
At JN Coach and Tech, go over, you can see all of those fantastic videos, and follow Joe, and they will come up every morning for you. Give yourself a little bit of inspiration for the day. I think especially in what is traditionally, you know, January blues that people talk about, that's a good time to get a bit of inspiration and push through that and get some motivation going to hit the year strong.
Yeah.
So for me, what would I do differently? Was that the question?
Yeah, things that you do differently, you'd done differently, you could have done differently.
I think I could have been a bit more disciplined at certain times. I think in kind of, there's, you know, odd days here or there where it's like, oh, I'm a bit tired, maybe I'll just do that tomorrow, where and we talk, you know, you go back, you listen to previous episodes, you can hear about that, and there's times when I've pushed through it, but then there's times when I've kind of given into that as well, and I don't think it actually makes you feel better in the end, especially if it's something small. Similarly, and I think it goes both ways, there's being more disciplined on doing stuff when I've said I'm going to do it, but I think that includes the downtime bit, because sometimes also you're like, right, this, I'm going to do this and this and this, and then I'm going to rest for this bit of time, but then things roll over and roll over and roll over, and the giving yourself a bit of time is the thing that can quite often fall down, and then you kind of get into a bit of a tired, burnt out spiral. And I think on both those fronts, it's just being a bit more disciplined with that time, and knowing that sometimes actually it's better to push through and you feel better for it, and sometimes you just need to give yourself that bit of break, and it's okay to do that as well. And I think I've kind of fallen down at times on both those fronts. So I think that, yeah, being a bit more, and it's not structured with my time, but that discipline bit around things, I think, is the main bit where I could have done it better. And that's the thing I'm going to be focusing on for the next year, I think.
Brilliant.
And I think, you know, get that good, you know, get the sense of achievement for the long-term good feeling rather than short-term, I'll just do that later. Yeah,
it's always about those decisions only impact you till later down the line.
Absolutely. You know,
right. So it might be a month, 2 months, and then you'll feel the impact. Oh, got it. It's been done. Look at that. See, there's all households going on. That's what it's about. Good. So, okay. Anything else you want to add to that one?
I think that's the main bit for me. That's what springs to mind.
Cool. Okay. So the next one is, what lessons have I learned? So for me, it's to be more patient with the results. I still struggle with that one a little bit. I just want to see more growth. Again, that's what I talked about earlier. To keep being consistent in posting content. So a bit like you, I've tried to add more stories. Just depends on whether I've got that time to do that story. So I'll do the video, then I'll do a bit of story about the day. And so just to be more consistent with that, posting the content, which I am, but I think I could do more, and depends on time, but I'll definitely be focused on doing that more. And those lessons I've learned is to try and add more, I suppose, real life stuff, like just what's going on in my life, like just be more of a vlogger. Like, I suppose I'll put vlogger in my description, but I do love vlogging. I do love it when I'm doing. I actually prefer that because it's like in the moment stuff. And then for me, it's just to like talk to people, coach people, and just let it go. I struggle with that sometimes because I really want people to win, and so sometimes I want to, how are you doing? And I'll go, how's it going? And I've got to recognise that I might do it once, but then I've just got to let it go and let them have the ownership of the outcomes, ownership of the results, ownership of the actions. And so that's something I've got to let go. So I'm doing that better, a lot better now. So I will talk to someone and then I won't follow up, because I always make it clear this is for you. If you want this to work, it's got to be on you. The responsibility's got on you. And if they said, I really do need something and I really wanted me to, yes, of course, but I'm not going to put that forth. That's got to be on them. So that's a lesson I've learned. You've got to let them follow their journey. And it's not going to be the same as yours. Even members of my family, we talk about things, they're going to have their own sort of journey, and everyone's individual and everyone's got to learn their lessons. And you've got to allow that to happen. And I find that difficult because I really want to help. I want to help people, and I feel like I want to put my arm around them and just go, come on, but sometimes you need that. But sometimes you just need to have their conversation and then let it go. For me, again, being even more in the moment, I could still improve on that, I think. I'm really conscious about it. I'm much better, even when it got really stressful events happen, like in family or when you're working, whatever. Recognising it and detaching. For me, is practicing more that lesson about detaching myself emotionally from that thought. There's nothing I can do about it. There's nothing I can do about it. And actually detaching and actually being okay with actually feeling. Sometimes I feel like sometimes I get a bit of stress here. I'm pointing to my chest, and I've got to recognise what is causing that, and actually there's nothing I can do about it. If there's nothing I can do about it, then to let that go and to not attach myself to the thought that I'm thinking about it. And again, that's a real self-awareness thing. Again, it's coming back to that. And for me, again, lessons I've learned to continue, actually writing better structured blogs, which I've started to do. They're much more structured. Being more free with that as well. So I'll evolve that as well. So lessons I've learned, those are lessons I've learned. Being more structured, being more aware of my thoughts and stress there, letting people go in terms of, outcomes, but it could be letting people go as well. Like for me, it's like, sometimes there's certain friends that you won't connect with, and it's okay at that moment. It's okay to let them go. And there's no pressure on it. It's just sometimes people come into your life for a reason, and sometimes they go out of it for a reason. And I think it's being okay with that, because again, I'd like to try and hold on to a lot of people, but again, I recognise that that's not always the case. Sometimes you've got to let it go. So they're quite good. So those are the sort of lessons I've learned. So, but yeah.
I think number one, and it overlaps a little bit of what you were saying, but it's don't give in to the stress. I think it's so easy when things are happening that you fall into that mindset of, I'm stressed. And then you generally make bad decisions when you're stressed. Your reactions to other people aren't quite as good as you want them to be. And it kind of ties a bit with, like you said, about living in the moment and stuff like that. Because important, everyone has stuff going on. And I think when you feel stressed, you feel like you're the only person in the world that's stressed, and you get into a cycle in your head. And I think the biggest thing I've learned this year is about that is recognizing when that's there, and focusing on what's good, focusing on what you're trying to achieve, working through whatever the issues are, and not kind of just getting into this I'm stressed mindset where then you're almost setting yourself up for failure in a way. And I think it's just about managing that and the positive benefits you get from that, which, a little bit ties in with the mindfulness stuff, a little bit about, the living in the moment, and about, I suppose, what your expectations are on other people's reactions. A bit like you said with the let it go thing, about not worrying too much about that, and knowing that there's only so much you can do, or only so much about that is actually about you as well. And I think it's keeping all that stuff in my head so that you are less stressed and you're more productive and you can be more positive about the world. I think is probably some of the biggest things where I've had those growth areas this year. For a bit of a ramble around stress. So I think that's been a big thing. That, and you go back, you listen to a previous episode, the thing around the meditation was a big moment for me. I think about taking that bit of time, which was literally 10 minutes to get that good feeling. Whereas I think I could always fall in a trap of, I've not got 10 minutes. Why am I going to waste my time doing that? I could be doing this. And kind of that whole taking those small moments to look after yourself. Because they say, don't they? It's, you know, like life is more stressful now than it's ever been, just because of the overwhelming amount of information and everything that's thrown at people and how connected everyone is, and just being able to take a step back from that.
I agree with you.
And I want to try practicing that more and more and more. But I think that's it. Number one is just, it's not giving into the, and I do air quotes for the sake of people listening rather than watching, not giving into the stress, because it can become a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy, I think. It's an easy out when things are difficult. Yeah.
And for me, it's just doubling down on that when it is like that. You need to double down on the tools.
Yeah, and that's it. Yeah, because I think stress is a concept, and it happens. People feel stressed, but I think you can get to a state where it's almost like you shouldn't feel stressed. So if you feel stressed, something's going wrong, and you steer away from what that thing is, and it almost becomes a journey to not feel stressed. Whereas actually, I think it's more not giving into that feeling and pushing through on things, and knowing that those feelings that come with it are just a part of life, and you work through it, and it's down to you how you manage it.
Yeah, and I think you're right. It's individually how you manage it, and that's where I think a lot of time where people get that, like people do use the tools when they're all in a good place, but they don't use them when they're in a bad place.
Exactly, yeah.
And that's the most time you've got to use when you're in the bad place, like all the difficult places. Use the tools then. So for me, it's like this journal thing. For me, is like a massive tool for me to, you know, when I'm feeling it, I can just write those thoughts down and just like, you know, and actually process it. And so for me, it's doubling down on those things.
That's it. Because like I said, and I've seen, and I saw someone else post this the other day, where they say that, you know, when under severe pressure or under severe stress, people become the worst versions of themselves. And I think it's like, because all those tools go out the window and you're just reacting. And I think if you're conscious of that and you don't give in to that stressed feeling and you keep using your tools, you can work through that. And I think that's a really important thing, and something that's quite conscious in my mind. There's something else I was going to say as well, but it's completely gone out of my head right now. So when it comes back to me, I'll just suddenly interrupt and blurt it out.
Do it, absolutely do it. No, and so I speak to a lot of people, and they say things like when they haven't got time and they feel stressed. I said, you need to be doubling down on what we talk about then. Yeah. But then you can see it that they're just not going to.
That's it, and it's that feeling, and that's the thing I think for me is a real conscious thing to not give into. Remember what it was now? So I saw something. It was one of our top influencers, Evan Carmichael, posted the other day, and it was a picture. It's a guy with an umbrella, but the rain was pouring out of the umbrella onto him while it was sunny outside, with a strapline about "It's all about your mindset." And I've seen another one as well, and I think it's Gary Vee who posted it, where there's 3 people and they've all got a rain cloud above their head, and 2 of them are walking along miserable, one's walking along with a smile on their face. And again, the message is it's all about how you feel is down to your mindset. And I think that links in with that to me, is it's all about how you react to the situation, which is something you always talk about. And I think I've taken that on board more and more this year. There's a big lesson.
It is massive. Perception of everything is huge. How you look at it, how you perceive it, that's your reality. And
Absolutely.
That's what they're talking about. So if you find you're looking like you got something really difficult going on, that's when I say look for the lesson. What's the lesson you can learn from it? So yeah, I mean, I talked about in the previous about, you know, about a cat's dying, and like it was horrible, like, and it's pretty stressful. Family was stressed out, and people like that. So what can I learn from that? And then you draw things like, okay, so we know that life's precious, right? So the lesson is that don't take it for granted. It is like enjoy the moments with people, be in the moment with people, enjoy those moments when you're with people, because sometimes what we're doing with people, we're thinking about something else with people, because you get these thoughts coming. And so it is stressful, and it's recognising the things that were great, and the joy that brings their lives, but recognise it's finite, finite life we've got. And I think those sorts of things, and that's what I mean by the lessons. And like, I know when I hit my mortal core, and it's a bit morbid, I suppose, talking about death, but it's a thing that's going to happen. But I want people to be happy when I'm gone. I don't want people to feel, oh God, of course there'll be mourning, of course there'll be grief, but I don't want that. I want them to go and live their best lives. If there's any legacy that comes off the back of this, and whenever people listen back to these podcasts, or or our conversations, is go live that life, because it's just go live it. And those are lessons, and these things can be stressful, but what is the lesson you can take from whatever it is? So if you go back to listen to some of the episodes, there's a lot of things we talked about. Well, I've learned lessons from previous workplaces and things like that. So take the lessons. Excellent. Okay. You got any more to add to that, Lee?
I do not.
Okay. So number 5 then. So what are the things that you did that made you happy? So for me, just doing this, like, helping people, having conversations with people, deep conversations. I love them. I love having deep conversations about people, where they want to be and the challenge they face. I want to be doing that. That's what makes me happy. That's what makes me feel like that's what makes me a better husband. That's what makes me a better dad. That's what makes me better everything in whatever I do. It gives me energy. Continue to mentor people, making sure the balance is right. And that makes me happy. When I get my balance right, I can feel it's happy. Like, I feel happy when I get it right. So I say coaching always makes me happy. And I say being in those moments, being more relaxed as well, that makes me happy. Like, trying to be more relaxed. Like, sometimes when I'm watching things, so I know, try to do the Brooklyn Nine-Nine thing when I've been watching, but I haven't been watching that lately. I've been obviously had this bit of time. I've been watching The Witcher and things like that, but I have invested a bit more time in taking some time out and doing some different things. Because literally, I'm usually like reading about coaching, or watching some inspirational content or something like that.
So you're still not Brooklyn Nine-Nine, but you're still watching things
stuff
for the sake of watching it, to enjoy it. I saw, by the way, did you have like a Rick and Morty game or something that you posted?
Oh yeah. So
that.
So that was my daughter's boyfriend. So she bought it for him for Christmas, and so a little game of that. And so so this Rick and Morty thing that we talked about, right? It's like evolved, literally. Oh, seriously, hold on. This is another thing that we got my daughter as well.
Okay. I'll fill the gap by doing a quick plug again for Inspiration Nation shop. Head over to inspirationnation.org.uk. T-shirts, hoodies, tote bags, I mentioned, and of course the famous mug. Here we go. Joe is back again. I was just doing a quick plug for the shop while you're gone. What have we got there? Is that the game, is it? Mr. Me Sinks Box O Fun.
Did you hear that?
Yes.
Now, I must say, it's not a game for kids. All right, so please, if you're under 18, it's not for that. So parents, if you see that, don't try and get your children. It is a little bit risque, but it is fun. But yeah.
That's good. But I like that was, a lot of the early episodes we talked about this, with your want for more comedy in your life was the way you spoke about it. And here we are at the end of the year with you holding up a Rick and Morty game to the camera. That's fantastic.
I mean, there was that Rick and Morty say, just for me, it has really helped. And that's a lesson I've learned, like, to have a bit more of that, to do things that may necessarily. I am obsessed by coaching and stuff. I'm obsessed with it. I'm obsessed with self-development. It's probably self-development I'm obsessed with. That's what I'm obsessed with. That's where it's evolved to. But using coaching a tool to do that, that really makes me happy, because I think for me is that thing about making progress. I feel I'm making progress, and now I can see the progress. And I can see it, and like through podcasts and all these sort of evidence things we can see the progress. And that makes you happy. It makes you think, well, I'm changing. I'm much more confident. I'm much more, I had comments before, but even more confident now. I'm like really like passionate, even more passionate. But I still want to get more passion. I don't think there's a level never ending. I want to be more passionate about the thing that I think will really help people. And so that's for me. And those things make me happy. And it spreads to all the roles of your life, though, which is really weird. it's not weird, but it's natural. But it spreads to everything. Every role you are in your life, it spreads to those areas. You know, and even since a little bit when you said to me, you shared the podcast, and we talk about that. I don't know if you want to talk about that, but even then, that's for me was an amazing confidence thing, and that's just incredible to think under a year ago, and you did that. Anyway, those are the sorts of things that make me happy. To think that things like our podcast and things we do make an impact.
Cool. So same to me then. So is this what are the things that I've done that have made me happy? Was that the question?
So what are the things that you did that make you happy?
And I think you touched on it when you said about it. It's the balance thing. And I think there's lots of things in lots of quarters that you put on that big diagram that make me happy. So spending time with the kids, doing the stuff I do with them, time with family, like I talked about earlier, the time with friends and stuff, all really good things, making the effort to make sure they happen, all make me feel very happy. Doing this podcast, what goes out there, the achievement you feel from it, just, you know, the friendship between you, me and Ryan that's grown over the year with doing this is all really, really good. Very positive things. I'm, you know, as we talked about before, I'm lucky. I love what I do when I go to work. And I say it's, whilst I do love my job more so, and I talk to people about this a lot, quite often it's not your job you love, because companies change, people change, whatever else, that's, you know, stuff changes around you, but it's what you get to do while you're doing your job. And I'm fortunate that I work for a place that I really like working for, and all the facets of my job are things I really enjoy doing. So I get to focus a lot of energy on that. Like we said, we do the podcast, my big out of work thing. Talked about earlier, the time with friends and stuff, all the time with the kids. All of those things, I think, are things during the year that I've been focused on making a big part of my life, and all things that make me really happy.
Brilliant, yeah.
Not to mention watching a bit of Rick and Morty and other such comedy shows as well.
Yeah, I think it's lovely. I think actually you remind me of actually where I'm doing my work, you know, all doing this podcast and doing all the stuff that I do, it's filtered into my work. Like, I've actually incorporated a lot of the stuff, I've drawn it across, and now it's making an impact in that environment, because I can bring that across. And, you know, I'm very fortunate to have like managers that allow me to play to my strengths. And I think, and I say it's every role, right? And so that has improved my role. Like, I've gone beyond the scope of the role. Like, I'm delivering a lot more value
by doing your things, and whatever you do going forward, you take all those attributes with you.
Yeah, and you go. It's beyond. You know, it's gone beyond whatever that definition of that job role is. I mean, yeah, of course, deliver the main things, but it's gone beyond that. It's like it's something just different, and it shows that you can shape things.
That's it. You can shape it. You can put your energy and your spin on it, and then you, like you said, you do your core job role, but then you actually end up going above and beyond, so you win and who you're working for wins.
And it's just like the energy level just goes through the roof, like just, you know, just incredible. And so yeah, so I just resonate with that when you said about that. I wanted to add that because it's another role which, you know, can bring you a ton of energy. If you're doing things you love, like, it will just have such a big impact on your whole life, the whole of your life. And you say you talked at the beginning about, you know, focus on just work, but actually, you know, as friends and all these other different facets that you got, you know, the podcast, and now bringing more energy, and it all just connects. It all connects. It's all interconnected, which is fascinating for me.
Yeah,
it's all interconnected,
and it brings it to a balance, like you said, because all of those different facets can have good moments and bad moments. But if you've got good stuff over here, it balances out the bad over here, and it all supports each other, rather than exactly as a trap I fell into years ago, focusing too much on one thing and becoming that thing. And when it's bad, you've got nothing else to kind of support you.
Like the portfolio, right? You can't just always, it's got to be balanced out.
Exactly.
And everyone's going to have their own different versions. So people listening to this, you're going to have your own different version of it. It's not going to be Lee's version. It's not going to be my version. It's going to be your own version. And that's part of self-development, which is, we call it self-awareness. And that's what you've got to find. You've got to find that. And that's part of it. But these are all the tools we talk about. You can use those to help you find them.
Absolutely right. And I think you touched on earlier, you mentioned it, like with your journaling, and the fact that this podcast almost is a journey of our own self-development.
I love that, yeah.
You know, people that have been with us for a while, people that have been from the start, hopefully have been taking stuff on board from this, and that's become part of their own journey that they're now far more aware of. But I'd really advocate as well for newer listeners. If you go back through the archive, episode 5 is all about journaling very, very specifically. And it's a big part of what we do. It's a huge part of why Joe does what he he does now. And I'd really advocate, if you've not, go back, give that a listen, because I think there's some really valuable tools that really link in with all the stuff we've been talking about today.
Yeah, I totally agree. And don't need, like for Journey, you don't need any posh things. It's just a pad of paper and to start. Or we talked about different things about, it might not be a piece of pad of paper. It could be, like, I don't know, whatever. So you think about, but so you have reminders around, just it's whatever you want it to be. But yeah, definitely something that helps. Definitely something to go to when you, like you say, when your thoughts are like overrun you a little bit. It's a great place to go. A space for you, a good space for you. Okay. Good. Anything else to add to that, Lee? Because before we move on to our last question.
That's a good answer. I was happy with that.
Okay, so last question then. So this is a review of 2020. So use these questions that we're talking about to review your 2020. Review your 2019 and go into 2020. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself already. Because it's something where you can reflect on what you focus on, what's been good. And I'm not saying ignore the things that you didn't get, but you can focus on, actually, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was, because sometimes that gives you that perspective. And as Lee said before, however you look at the world will be the world that you live in, which is crazy thought, but it's true. However you look at it, you will find it. And I talked about in one of my YouTube videos about the RAS, or reticular activating system, and that's whatever you search for, you'll find it. It's just making sure that you've got your perspective set in the role. I'm not talking about being unrealistic. I'm talking about having the perspective that's going to help you, and recognizing things that haven't gone well, but recognizing things that have gone well as well. So you can then focus on that and build on your strengths. You'll find your strengths in those moments. Anyway, last question. What new skills have I gained and why? And was it out of a need, interest, or passion? That's the last question. So for me, one was video editing. That's definitely a need, I felt. But it comes out of my passion, right? I didn't really want to do video editing. You probably find a lot of my videos haven't edited that much. I just put them on, boom, and start on, which I thought was good because it's given me a sense between edited and non-edited. I don't edit it too much, so I have to put different sort of things in there. There's a bit of music. Blogging's improved. That's definitely a skill I've done, and again, something I wanted to do. I've discovered putting on ramps, which are things like introducing people to a certain piece of content. So I'll put a title and it'll be about that. So sort of giving people a guide, and having the end in mind. So I'll write the end and then I'll feel backwards from the end. So start with the end in mind, a bit of Stephen Covey thing about start with the end in mind. If you ever read that, 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, really great book. And if you do that, you can work backwards towards the solution or the end conclusion, and that gives you the content, which is great. Consistency, again, keeping on track. Resilience, you're always going to get people who post bad comments and things like that, and recognizing that that's a part of life. The more exposure we have, that's what's going to happen. But I still feel that twinge. When I see it like a bad, I still feel it, but it's recognizing that's going to happen. Resilience, that's really key for me. Belief as well. I know it's not a skill more than an attribute, I suppose, but building on that, the skill to build on that by doing the thing we're doing, and being inspired, really, to feel inspired in everything I do. I want to have that is my thing, because that's what I discovered, that I have to feel inspired. So I can't always rely on people to be inspired, but always find things to inspire me. So that's what my environment's all about, inspiration. The things I watch about inspiration. I only watch things that give me inspired, an inspired view of the world. And that's how I look at the world. I want things out there to be inspired, so I look for it. And because of, like I said, what you look for, you find. You do find it. And there's a lot of inspirational people out there. And this is born out of my passion. So skills are gained, and why is really about my own self-development tools, about finding a passion, using inspiration as a tool, evolving that. Blogging skills improve, editing skills are going to be improving. They're getting better already, but being better at those things. Without a need, passion or interest, a lot of it comes from my passion, but I know from the passion there's a need to do it because I have to do it because of the thing. So I think it's a bit of a mixed bag, that one. So that's what I've gained as the last particular question. So what about you, Lee?
So question again?
What new skills have you gained and why? Was it out of need, passion, or interest, or a combination of all three?
Well, and like you touched on with your video editing stuff, there's a lot of stuff in the podcast area is probably a huge area. Again, you go back and listen, you heard the early episodes where Joe was telling me that we need to, even what I would now say are simple things like getting a Twitter account set up and stuff like that. I didn't really do a lot with social media, and I'm now quite heavily involved in, well, it's a daily thing for me, non-stop. And I think that's probably come from all three. It was a need because of the podcast. It was a passion because of what we were doing. And actually, the more I got involved in it, the more I'm interested in how you maximise it. So it kind of came from all three of those areas. It started off as a need, but it became a passion and an interest, I suppose, is a better way of putting it. And then a lot of, again, I talked about earlier around the whole mindfulness stuff. So a lot of kind of day-to-day stress, pressure, coping mechanism sort of skills, I think, is an area kind of for personal growth that I've really developed a lot this year. And those skills have come through. And again, you can kind of say it came from a need, but it was something that was always there. It's only because people sparked an interest in me that I started to utilise those skills, and they help me in my own development and my progression and how I deal with things day to day. I don't think it so much came from a need, though. Retrospectively, like you said, joining the dot backwards, you can say, oh yeah, I'm a better person because of it. But I didn't find those skills because I felt like I wasn't coping or progressing or whatever else. It came because someone spoke to me about it and gained an interest, and then, like other things, it then becomes a passion. It links in with everything. I think there's some big areas that I've kind of grown and developed in this year, and then all the boring technical periphery things in terms of recording something and editing it and posting it and all that jazz that is very much day to day now. That was a new and scary world back in March. I think there's some of the big areas that I think skills growth.
So I'm just going to wrap it up then, like in the last sort of thing. And so I'm going to ask you the question. So how do you think your 2019 went overall?
Really good. Really, really good. I think, especially if I look back at me, and I think I touched on this in a previous episode 2 or 3 years ago, I think 2019 is the year when I've been my most self. That's when I've, really parts of me that I identify as me now have really been in focus is during 2019. So I think from that aspect, it's been a hugely successful year.
And going forward 2020 then?
Even more of the same.
Yeah. Me and you both. It's been a crazy year, to be fair. A good year though. I think it's been a good year. I think it's one we'll look back on with a lot of nostalgia, I think, in a good few years' time.
Yes, I think you're right.
On that. And who knows where it's going to go. But 2020, I think it's going to be exciting. I think it's going to, there's been some change in 2019, of course there is, but I think 2020 is exciting to look forward to what's going to happen and what we're going to do. I think it's going to be great. It's going to be
absolutely
good.
I think it's a good way to wrap it up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to post all the questions in a little quote on Twitter to remind people, everyone listening, I think it'd be a huge, exactly like it was for Joe, like it has been for me here. I think it'd be a really valuable exercise. Everyone listening, if you're on those journeys, just go through these questions, have some really honest answers of yourself, and then help that with the growth for 2020.
Absolutely. I think it's going to be good. I just thought it was a really good exercise to do at the beginning of this sort of year, and to really focus on, really bring some focus into your life. So, being conscious, because that's the thing, we're just not conscious a lot of the time, and having this sort of thing, coming back to a podcast like this or wherever you go. It doesn't have to be a podcast. We'd love it if we would come to our podcast, but anything, if you find something that comes out of this question, you think, well, actually, I need more bit of that, well, go find that, go search for that, give that as part of the environment, because the environment, I think, is a really big part of everything. You've got to get your environment right.
Absolutely.
The content 100%. You watch, what you listen to, what you read, who you listen to, who you're around. And I did a video about that, who's in your closest circle of influence, they're going to have an impact on you. So being mindful about that. Are the people that you have at the minute, are they the ones that are helping you become the person you want to be? Recognize who you are. So those sorts of things as well. It's really like a good audit. I think it's like an audit of you, like where you are now. And people don't like that word, but wherever you want to use it, audit, review. But if you're serious about like developing and getting to those next levels, and there's infinite levels, right, for you, just do this, commit to it, write it down. We've done an audio version of it, whatever it is, record it. You could do an audio version, whatever it is, then come, you know, once you've done your year, come back to it and see where you are. So we could come back to this actually, couldn't we? 2021.
Absolutely, that's a good idea.
Oh my God, I just thought of a good idea. I'm going to put this live to you. Some of the podcasts have actually been doing like a podcast, but it's about the whole year of the review, and they've been experts. Oh, this is like 15-minute clips of certain episodes. That'd be quite a cool thing. Anyway, that's something to think about. I'll talk about it online, but I thought that was really cool. I listened to Rich Roll podcast. That's what they did.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
All the best clips from the year, and actually creates an episode in itself. So that might be an awesome little thing for us. I think that'd be quite cool. Anyway, there you go. Just a little thing that pops into my head.
Love it.
All right. So we done, do you think?
We are. So as always, we thank everyone for listening. This has been our first show of 2020. We hope you are with us for the rest of the year. As always, we ask, tell friends, tell family, get people listening, support us on social media. Joe is at JN Coaching Tech across all platforms, including TikTok. The show is at Listen2IN, Listen2IN. Website is InspirationNation.org.uk. You can listen to the show there. Share that with people. It's got a link to the shop. Again, t-shirts, mugs, all that exciting stuff. Shot of the mug on the camera for you there. Appreciate any support. And please, if you're listening now, if you like what you hear, leave us a review on whatever platform you're listening to. Some kind words, hitting that 5-star button. We really appreciate it. And we'll be back again next week.
This is amazing.
Shall I count us down, Joe?
Really enjoyed it. Yeah, count us down, Lee. Do it.
Excellent. 3, 2, 1. Inspiration Nation.
Nation.
Catch you guys later.
Catch you later. I love that. Where am I going? If you enjoyed this video, you'll love this video next to me called How to Win in 2020, Set Yourself Up for Success. And also, don't forget to subscribe. Hit the subscribe button here and it will tell you when another video has been uploaded. So have an amazing day. It's Inspiration Nation. I'll catch you guys later. And that'll be really mean a lot to me. And I hope you enjoy it. No, that's right. Shut it.